Let's dive into the darkest corners of the human mind by exploring the last interviews with serial killers before their executions. Brace yourselves as we explore the minds of these notorious criminals and attempt to understand the unfathomable depths of their actions. Number 1. Ed Cole. In an exclusive television interview, a condemned killer, Ed Cole, reflects on his life, punishment, and the suffering he inflicted upon his victims. The interview takes place hours before his scheduled execution. As the interview begins, the interviewer asks Cole about the stress he is experiencing and whether it is becoming harder or easier to cope. Cole admits that the past few days have been emotionally draining, leaving him tired and weary.
But really, the last couple of days have been real emotionally, not mentally draining, not emotionally draining. Just feel tired and everything like that, exhausting.
However, he remains resolute in his decision and does not express any desire to delay his execution.
I just don't care to.
When asked about his remorse for the victims, Cole acknowledges his sorrow, particularly for an 11-year-old girl murdered in 1967.
Especially the one that was the 11-year-old girl way back in 1967.
He reflects on the impact his actions may have had on her life and admits that even a 5-year sentence he once served did not alleviate his feelings of guilt.
And even doing that 5-year sentence, it wasn't enough. But I thought about it and condemned myself for many years, because I can just imagine what her life might have been like.
Although he doesn't mention the victims' names, the interviewer asks about the religious aspect of his situation. Cole considers it a personal matter, but acknowledges its presence in his thoughts. The conversation shifts to concerns about potential pain during the execution process. Cole admits that he is worried, as it is the first time this type of execution is being carried out in the state.
If I said if I wasn't concerned about that, I'd be lying. Because everybody wants to go the, easiest, most comfortable way.
He hopes for a comfortable and painless end, but the uncertainty leaves room for concern. When directly asked if he believes he deserves to die, Cole finds it difficult to answer.
I can't answer that question.
It is the question.
For what I did, yes, I think I deserve to die.
He acknowledges that his actions warrant the ultimate punishment, but the question represents the weight of his crimes. Carroll Edward Eddie Cole, born in Sioux City, Iowa, on May 9, 1938, is known as an American serial killer responsible for the deaths of at least 15 women and 1 boy between 1947 and 1980. Cole's troubled life began with a tumultuous upbringing, marked by his parents' strained relationship and his mother's infidelity. While his father fought in World War II, his mother exposed Cole to her extramarital affairs, threatening him into silence. This upbringing led to torment at school, where he faced ridicule due to his feminine name. At age 8, Cole's suppressed anger and desire for revenge manifested in the drowning of one of his classmates, Dwayne. Though authorities initially deemed it an accident, Cole later confessed to the calculated act of retribution against his mother. As a teenager, Cole committed petty crimes, leading to arrests for drunkenness and theft. After a brief stint in the U.S. Army, he was discharged for stealing pistols. Cole's violent fantasies and fear of women led him to contact the police and confess his disturbing thoughts. He spent time in mental hospitals, where doctors noted his inability to engage in sexual intercourse without killing women. Diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, he was released in 1963. He moved to Dallas, Texas, where he married and later set fire to a motel due to suspicions of his wife's infidelity. His arson conviction resulted in a prison sentence. Upon release, Cole attempted to strangle an 11-year-old girl, which led to another prison term. Astonishingly, despite his murderous fantasies, he was not detained when doctors decided against it, and he returned to San Diego. A series of gruesome murders marked Cole's adult life. He justified his actions by claiming his victims reminded him of his adulterous mother. His capture came after becoming a suspect in one murder and being found at the scene of another. During questioning, Cole confessed to all the murders, admitting to killing at least 14 women over the previous 9 years. However, he was unsure of the exact number due to his intoxicated state during the crimes. Cole faced trial and received a life sentence for 3 murders in Texas in 1981. In 1984, he agreed to face additional murder charges in Nevada, resulting in a death sentence. Despite efforts by anti-death penalty activists to have his sentence commuted, Cole resisted their attempts. On December 6, 1985, he was executed by lethal injection at Nevada State Prison. Shortly after his death, his brain was removed for examination. Number 2. Wesley Allen Dodd. In 1989, the world was shocked by the heinous crimes committed by Wesley Allen Dodd, Dodd. This is the story of the man who kidnapped, sexually molested, and murdered young boys, as revealed in an interview. Dodd's dark journey began when he was arrested in 1989 for attempting to kidnap a young boy from a movie theater in Camas, Washington. However, during police questioning, the truth emerged. Dodd had sexually abused and killed 3 other boys in recent months. Shockingly, Dodd estimated that he had molested around 175 children throughout a 15-year period. Born into an unhappy home, Dodd's troubled childhood may have contributed to his criminal behavior. At 13, he began exposing himself to little kids through his bedroom window. He went on to molest 2 of his younger cousins and continued his crimes, primarily targeting neighborhood children while babysitting. Despite multiple arrests, Dodd received lenient punishments, reinforcing his belief that nobody cared about his actions. In 1981, Dodd enlisted in the U.S. Navy, but was discharged due to allegations of offering money to young boys in exchange for sexual acts. In subsequent years, he faced further arrests for child molestation attempts. Although he received counseling, Dodd openly admitted that it did not affect his desire to harm children. The extent of Dodd's depravity was revealed through his diary, which contained plans for kidnapping, torture, sexual abuse, and murder. On September 3, 1989, he acted on one of his chilling plans, luring 2 young brothers, Cole and William Neer, off a path in a park. Dodd bound, sexually abused, and ultimately stabbed the boys to death. Their bodies were found by a hiker just minutes later. Less than 2 months later, Dodd targeted another victim, 4-year-old Lee Acerly, whom he abducted from a playground in Portland, Oregon. He took Lee to his apartment, where he subjected him to repeated sexual abuse, photographing him in the process. The following morning, Dodd killed Lee by choking him and then hanging him from a rod in his closet. Dodd's reign of terror was halted when he attempted to kidnap 6-year-old James Kirk from a movie theater restroom. Kirk fought back, drawing attention and leading to Dodd's capture by witnesses. Dodd eventually confessed to the murders of Acerly and the Neer brothers. Police discovered his photographs, diary, and even the homemade torture rack in his apartment. In a haunting interview, Wesley Allen Dodd reveals his chilling motives and troubled past before his impending execution. His words, though unsettling, shed light on his disturbing mindset and actions. When asked why he desires execution, Dodd responds with a bone-chilling admission. He believes he would kill again if given the chance.
Why do you want to be executed? I have to be. Because I will kill again. No, I would do it again. I've been molesting kids nonstop since I was 13 years old, over half my life. Anything happened, I can guarantee I'd do it again, and sooner or later I would kill another child.
He admits to engaging in relentless acts of molestation for a significant portion of his life, stating that he would repeat these heinous acts without hesitation. Furthermore, Dodd chillingly admits that he would eventually take another person's life.
I'm not going to say who, but there is somebody out there. There's a man out there.
He confesses to having committed such atrocities in the past, and disturbingly, he reveals his enjoyment of these acts during that time. When questioned about his impending execution, Dodd explains that it is a necessary step to prevent further harm. He believes that his execution would serve as a deterrent, causing potential molesters to think twice before committing such abhorrent acts.
I think it would. I think a few child molesters, anyway, are going to think twice before they do anything again.
He admits to moments of reflection where he contemplates the horrifying statements made by his victims before their untimely deaths. These memories haunt him, making it difficult to cope. However, he also mentions attempting to suppress these thoughts, attempting to block them out of his mind.
At times, it's not easy. Like I said, there's times I think about what I've done. I think about some of the things the boys said before they died, and that's real hard to think about. At other times, I just try to put everything out of my mind.
Asked if he looks forward to dying, Dodd responds with a complex mixture of relief and resignation. He believes that death would bring an end to his torment, freeing him from the burden of his disturbing thoughts and actions.
In a way, yeah, I think it'd be a relief. I don't have to think about all these things anymore. And I know that's the only way I can guarantee I'm not going to hurt anybody else.
In his twisted logic, he sees death as the only guarantee that he will no longer pose a threat to others. While he claims not to want to die at this moment, he acknowledges the inevitability and proximity of his execution. In this unsettling interview, Wesley Allen Dodd's admissions provide a horrifying glimpse into the mind of a serial killer. His desire for execution stems from a twisted certainty that he would continue his reign of terror, making it evident that his actions have left an indelible mark on both his victims and society as a whole. While incarcerated, Dodd wrote a pamphlet pamphlet titled When You Meet a Stranger, aiming to educate children about potential dangers. He faced skepticism regarding his motives, but some parents and teachers acknowledged its value in teaching children to protect themselves. Dodd also formed an unexpected connection with a woman whose father had died from a lack of a kidney transplant. Her 8-year-old son, Noah, began corresponding with Dodd, and the two developed a bond. Number 3. Velma Bullard. Velma Bullard, later known as Velma Barfield, was born into a low-income family in South Carolina on October 29, 1932. Her life of crime began early when she noticed the financial disparity between herself and her classmates. To afford small luxuries, she started stealing pocket money from her father. However, when her father discovered her actions and punished her, it marked the end of her childhood theft. Velma's adolescence was marked by sexual abuse from her father, leading her to seek escape from her home. At 17, she married her high school boyfriend, Thomas Burke, and they had 2 children together. Velma took a job at a textile plant, but had to leave due to medical issues that necessitated an emergency hysterectomy. This surgery, combined with her husband's increasing alcohol consumption, left her feeling isolated. To cope, she began taking prescription drugs such as Librium and Valium, visiting multiple doctors for prescriptions. After a heated argument with her husband, Velma left the house with her children, leaving Thomas alone. Tragically, the house caught fire under mysterious circumstances, resulting in her husband's death and the destruction of their home. Velma and her children moved back in with her parents, only for her mother to fall ill soon after their return. Her mother's illness went unnoticed as Velma began working as a caretaker for various individuals, 2 of whom also fell ill and died while under her care. During this time, Velma married Jennings Barfield, a widower. After an argument, Jennings became mysteriously ill and died of a heart attack. Once again, Velma and her children moved back in with her parents. Her father eventually succumbed to lung cancer, a death unrelated to Velma's actions. As a caretaker, she continued to be employed by families in the community. However, suspicion arose when 2 couples she worked for fell ill and died. Additionally, a new boyfriend named Stuart Taylor discovered Velma stealing from him and forging his checks before passing away mysteriously. Following Stuart's funeral, an anonymous tip led to a police investigation. Autopsies revealed traces of arsenic from rat poison in Stuart's system. This discovery prompted authorities to re-examine the deaths in Velma's life, finding the same brand of rat poison in the bodies of her other victims. Velma eventually confessed to 4 of the murders and received a death sentence. Despite attempts from psychiatric witnesses to prevent her execution, she was convicted. She became the first woman to be executed since 1962, when the death penalty was reinstated. Throughout the trial, Velma's age, grandmotherly appearance, and soft southern accent starkly contrasted with her confession as a serial killer. Her victims, including her mother, Stuart Taylor, John Henry Lee, and Dolly Edwards, were all found to have been poisoned with arsenic-laced food or drink. Velma's motive was financial, as she struggled with prescription drug addiction and resorted to theft. The defense argued that Velma intended to keep her victims ill until she could repay the stolen money and gain their gratitude by nursing them back to health. However, this defense crumbled under the prosecution's argument that Velma failed to inform doctors about the real cause of her victims' illnesses, thereby preventing potential life-saving treatment. Despite her remorse and public displays of mourning for each victim, Velma's conviction and death sentence were upheld. The local prosecutor, Joe Freeman Britt, the deadliest prosecutor in the nation, played a pivotal role in her trial. Velma's lengthy appeals garnered attention due to her gender, age, prison-influenced embrace of Christianity, and remorse. Before her execution, she was initially held at the Women's Correctional Facility in Raleigh. She was later moved to Raleigh's Central Prison due to security concerns. As the only woman prisoner in the facility, Barfield later resided in virtual isolation, situated in a cell just across from the execution chamber. In the interview before her execution, she said her closeness to the chamber serves as a constant reminder of her likely fate and complete isolation from the people she had been with for nearly 6 years.
It's total, isolation from everybody that I had been with for almost 6 years.
Barfield attributes her descent into a life of crime to drug addiction. She became dependent on tranquilizers during a difficult period in her life. Reflecting on the past 10 years, she describes it as a drug-induced nightmare, where she often lost track of her whereabouts and actions.
The last 10 years was just like that, years of a drug nightmare. Days of not knowing where you are or what you've done.
Her attorney prevents her from discussing whether she was fully aware of her actions at the time of her crimes. However, during her imprisonment, Barfield claims to have found solace in her relationship with God. She believes that her faith has been instrumental in helping her endure the challenges of confinement. She acknowledges that living in prison is an ongoing struggle, even during the best of times, and she credits her strength and resilience to her connection with God.
Living in prison every day is a struggle, even at its best. And I know that without him and the his strength that has sustained me, I couldn't have made it even thus far.
Barfield, now drug-free and remorseful, expresses deep regret for the pain she has caused others. She apologizes for the harm inflicted on numerous individuals, expressing a sincere desire to bear their burdens if possible.
I'm sorry for the hurt that I've caused so many people. Today, if it were possible, I wish that I could take every bit of hurt on myself.
In her circumstances, Barfield grappled with the weight of her impending fate. Isolated from the outside world and aware of the consequences awaiting her, she sought solace in her faith and strived to make amends for her past actions. In the end, wearing pink pajamas and consuming a final meal of Coca-Cola and cheese doodles, Velma was executed by lethal injection. Velma Barfield's case remains significant for being the first execution of a woman in America in 22 years. Number 4. Ted Bundy. On November 24, 1946, Ted Bundy was born in Burlington, Vermont. He would go on to become one of the most infamous serial killers in American history. Despite his charming demeanor and intelligence during his youth, signs of Bundy's sadistic tendencies began to surface during his teenage years while he lived in Washington. By 1972, Bundy had completed college and appeared destined for a promising future in either law or politics. However, it was in 1974 when his passion for violence came alive as he mercilessly assaulted his first verified victim. Bundy strategically targeted young and attractive college women near his residence in Washington and later in states such as Utah, Colorado, and Florida. He employed various deceptive tactics to lure them into harm's way. Often, he would disguise himself by wearing casts on either an arm or leg while hobbling around with crutches. Utilizing his charm and deceitful pretense of disability, he cunningly persuaded his victims to assist him in carrying books or unloading belongings from his vehicle. Furthermore, Bundy skillfully adopted the guise of authority figures, such as police officers or firefighters, to gain their unwavering trust before launching his sinister attacks. Upon entering his 1968 tan Volkswagen Beetle, Bundy would abruptly and forcefully strike his unsuspecting victims on the head using a crowbar or pipe. Subsequently rendering them powerless with handcuffs, he forcibly confined them within the vehicle. Notably, he even removed the passenger seat to create a concealed space on the floor where the victim could lie undetected by any external observers. After having imprisoned these unfortunate individuals, Bundy committed unspeakable acts such as rape and murder against multiple women, often employing methods like strangulation or brutal bludgeoning both during and after death. Compounding this horrifying reality is Bundy's disgusting habit of mutilating their bodies while revisiting dump sites or even keeping some remains in his living quarters. Most disturbingly, it came to light that he boldly exhibited certain victims' severed heads within his apartment as grim trophies of his atrocious crimes. By leaving barely any traceable evidence and taking advantage of the limited forensic techniques available in the 1970s, Bundy avoided detection for an extensive amount of time. Bundy's initial apprehension occurred in Utah on August 16, 1975, after he fled from a patrol car. After the initial escape, Bundy went to Florida and resumed his cycle of violence. He targeted primarily Florida State University students as his victims, subjecting at least 6 more individuals to rape or murder. However, Bundy's crimes finally caught up with him when he was pulled over for a minor traffic violation on February 15, 1978. In the final hours before his scheduled execution, Ted Bundy sat for an interview.
What's going through my mind right now is to use the minutes and hours that I have left as fruitfully as possible and see what happens. It helps to live in the moment in the essence that we use it productively.
Bundy expresses a desire to utilize his remaining minutes and hours as meaningfully as possible, emphasizing the importance of living in the present and using time productively. As the conversation delves into Bundy's past, he reflects on the origins of his behavior and the factors that led to his violent crimes.
I grew up in a wonderful home with 2 dedicated and loving parents, one of 5 brothers and sisters. We regularly attended church, 2 Christian parents who did not drink, they did not smoke, there was no gambling, there was no physical abuse or fighting in the home.
Despite growing up in what he describes as a healthy, loving, and Christian household, Bundy acknowledges encountering explicit content, including pornography, during his adolescent years. He explains how exposure to violent and sexualized pornography played a role in fueling his fantasies and gradually eroding the barriers that restrained him from acting upon his destructive impulses.
The most damaging kinds of pornography are those that involve violence, and as I know only too well, brings about behavior that is just too terrible to describe.
However, he refused to blame pornography and took responsibility for his actions.
That I'm not blaming pornography, and not saying that it caused me to go out and do certain things. And I take full responsibility for whatever I've done and all the things that I've done.
The interview further explores Bundy's descent into violence, with the interviewer probing the emotional effects of his first murder. Bundy describes a feeling of being possessed by something horrible and alien, only to wake up the next morning in horror and guilt, realizing the magnitude of his actions.
Absolutely horrified that I was capable of doing something like that. There is just absolutely no way to describe, first, the brutal urge to do that kind of thing.
He grapples with the stark contrast between his regular life, where he appeared normal to friends and family, and the hidden darkness within him.
I wasn't some guy hanging out at bars or a bum, or I wasn't a pervert in the sense that, you know, people look at somebody and say, I know there's something wrong with him, and just tell. And I had good friends, except for this one small but very potent and very destructive segment of it that I kept very secret.
Bundy candidly discusses the detrimental effects of pornography, particularly violent and sexually explicit material, which he experienced as an addiction. He emphasizes that while not everyone who consumes pornography becomes violent, there is a percentage of individuals, like himself, who are deeply influenced by it. Bundy draws attention to the graphic violence depicted in modern media, expressing concern that it can reach vulnerable individuals and potentially lead them down a destructive path. The interview addresses Bundy's remorse for his victims and their families, acknowledging the pain he caused and the irreparable damage inflicted upon them. He acknowledges that forgiveness is not expected and that the punishment he deserves is the most extreme society can offer to protect itself from individuals like him.
I don't want to die. I'm not going to kid you. I'll kid you not. I deserve certainly the most extreme punishment society has, and I think society deserves to be protected from me and from others like me.
In his final hours, Bundy finds solace and draws strength from his faith in Jesus Christ, having accepted forgiveness and becoming a believer. While he admits that the journey ahead is daunting and lonely, he acknowledges that death is a shared experience that awaits us all. Eventually, Bundy met his demise in the electric chair on January 24, 1989. Throughout his criminal life, Bundy possessed an uncanny ability to manipulate those around him, from law enforcement officers and prison guards to even his wife. This unique talent allowed him to maintain a deceptive mask of normalcy while engaging in despicable acts that would earn him the infamous title of the very definition of heartless evil. Number 5. Aileen Carroll Wuornos. In 1991, Aileen Carroll Wuornos emerged as a groundbreaking figure who shattered the widely held myth about serial killers. Until then, notorious individuals such as Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy had established a stereotype of the typical serial killer, white, male, and primarily motivated by sexual dysfunction. However, Wuornos defied these preconceived notions by proving that gender and race are not defining factors when it comes to serial murder. The media quickly dubbed her America's first female serial killer, sensationalizing her story. Nevertheless, even Robert K. Ressler, a renowned FBI profiler who coined the term serial killer and identified patterns in this type of crime, regarded Wuornos as an anomaly in the field. While it is true that women do commit multiple murders on occasion, their actions tend to be more impulsive and unplanned instead of following a sequential pattern like men. Sadly, though unsurprisingly, one aspect of Wuornos's life aligns with her male counterparts. She too experienced severe abuse and violence during her childhood, similar to the experiences of Henry Lee Lucas and Richard Ramirez, among others, before her infamous crimes. Finding herself trapped in the cracks of support systems, she turned to a life of wrongdoing fueled by hopelessness and rage. Born on February 29, 1956, in Rochester, Michigan, Wuornos spent her formative years under the misconception that her grandparents were her biological parents. In actuality, they had adopted both Wuornos and her brother Keith. At a young age, Aileen's mother, Diane, entered into marriage but quickly initiated divorce mere moments after giving birth to Wuornos. Subsequently, Diane remarried and had 2 more children, while Wuornos and her brother were raised by their grandparents. Life in Wuornos's grandparents' home was far from easy. Laurie Wuornos's grandfather was an alcoholic who subjected her to frequent beatings and abuse. Aileen endured physical and emotional trauma, including allegations of sexual abuse by her grandfather. These experiences led her down a destructive path, and by the age of of 12, she was trading sex for money and cigarettes. At 15, Wuornos left home and became a homeless sex worker, relying on theft and illegal activities to survive. Over time, her criminal behavior escalated, and she was involved in various offenses, such as burglary and assault. She adopted different aliases to cover her tracks. In 1989 and 1990, Wuornos committed a series of murders, targeting men she claimed had solicited her for sex and then attempted to rape her. She killed 7 men, leaving a trail of bodies across Florida. Wuornos's self-defense claims were met with skepticism, and she was convicted of 6 counts of murder. Despite her plea and assertions of abuse, she received 6 death sentences. During her time on death row, Wuornos exhibited signs of paranoia and maintained a conflicted stance regarding her crimes. She participated in an interview before her impending execution. Her words provide a glimpse into her troubled mindset and the circumstances surrounding her crimes. Considering the gravity of her situation, Wuornos seemed remarkably composed as she discussed her preparation for the following morning.
I'm prepared. I'm all right. I'm all right with it.
Acknowledging her sloppiness and lack of professionalism as a murderer, Wuornos claimed that law enforcement knew her true identity after the death of Richard Mallory, the first victim. She believed that the police covered up her initial crimes and allowed her to continue killing, inadvertently turning her into a serial killer. She claimed to have left fingerprints at the crime scenes, but the authorities failed to apprehend her, leading to additional victims.
I know that the cops knew who I was. After Richard Mallory died, I left prints everywhere, and they covered it up and let me kill the rest of those guys to turn me into a serial killer.
Wuornos then shared disturbing details about her time in prison, alleging torture and psychological torment. She claimed that the prison staff used sonic pressure on her head and manipulated surveillance equipment to hinder her communication. Wuornos suspected the existence of hidden devices that affected her thoughts and writing, leading her to question her sanity.
Well, I think their whole plan was to try to make it look like I was totally crazy, and so nobody would believe anything I had to say about anything.
She also described mistreatment by prison officials, including increased harassment, inedible food, and suppression of her complaints and grievances. Wuornos believed that the authorities intentionally sought to portray her as mentally unstable, to discredit her claims, and ultimately drive her to madness. Wuornos maintained her faith in a higher power despite her suffering, expressing confidence that God, Jesus Christ, and the beyond would welcome her. She speculated about a transcendental experience, likening it to the beaming technology depicted in Star Trek, suggesting that she would journey to another planet or dimension. Wuornos firmly believed her actions were justified, asserting she had saved many people from harm.
God is going to be there, Jesus Christ is going to be there, all the angels and everything. And, you know, whatever's on the beyond, I think it's going to be more like Star Trek beaming me up into a space vehicle, man. I know it's going to be good because I didn't do anything as wrong as they said. I did the right thing.
When questioned about her motives and whether her killings were in self-defense, Wuornos declined to delve into the specifics of her cases. She emphasized that her execution was imminent, leaving little room for further discussion or potential exoneration. She exhibited a resigned acceptance of her fate, leaving the interviewer to draw their conclusions. Wuornos expressed anger throughout the interview toward law enforcement, society, and the justice system. She accused them of sabotaging her life, denying her a fair trial, and exploiting her story for profit. In her final words, she expressed a sense of profound betrayal and criticized society's lack of compassion. On October 9, 2002, Wuornos was executed by lethal injection at the age of 46. Number 6. John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne. Gacy's name stands out even among the most notorious serial killers. In December 1978, the world was shocked when police unearthed the remains of 29 young boys from the crawl space of Gacy's house in Chicago, with 4 more bodies discovered in the nearby river. By the time Gacy's reign of terror had ended, he was convicted of 33 counts of murder in 1980 and sentenced to death. Gacy's murderous spree began long before he was caught. In a chilling interview with CBS 2's Walter Jacobson in 1992, just 2 years before his execution, Gacy attempted to present himself as a misunderstood victim of circumstance. In this groundbreaking interview, he addresses the misconceptions and false narratives that have been spread about him. He explains why he chose to stay silent for so long, believing that his attorneys could handle his case and that the media was only interested in sensationalism and portraying him as a monster.
In light of all that has been used against me in the media, they've created this fantasy monster image, and it's been going on for the last 12 years, and I've ever had no comment, and I had no need to talk to the media for the simple reason that they were looking for sensationalism and they were looking for the monster.
Gacy dismisses the notion that he granted interviews or that he had given any statements to the media. He emphasizes that he has been consistently misquoted and misunderstood, creating a false image of him as a homosexual thrill killer.
I'm misquoted constantly, saying that I said this and I said that, and it's not happened.
He vehemently denies the accusations that he stalked and murdered young boys, citing his busy work schedule and lack of opportunity.
Hell, if you could see my schedule, my work schedule, you know damn well that I was never out there.
Gacy also addresses the allegations of his involvement in homosexuality and the homosexual abuse.
They're claiming that the state representative's son, who was on the other party, he claims that he was sexually abused by me. And in essence, he was blackmailing me for it. Now, what it boiled down to was oral copulation. And it was consensual.
He admits to engaging in consensual sex with men, but identifies as bisexual. He emphasizes that he has nothing against homosexuality and believes in personal freedom. He mentions his difficult relationship with his father, who held conservative values, and suggests that his liberal views may have reacted to his father's beliefs. Gacy concludes by expressing his belief that the investigation into his case was flawed and incomplete, leading to his wrongful conviction. In another interview that would be his final one before execution, he expressed frustration, believing that society was not interested in the truth and preferred to be convinced of their beliefs. He warned that if people were brainwashed into believing falsehoods, they might execute an innocent person.
People don't want to know the truth and the honesty of it. If they want to be convinced or brainwashed into what they believe, then fine, then go ahead and kill me. But vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, because you will have executed somebody that didn't commit the crime.
When asked about his role as a father, Gacy described himself as loving and caring. He mentioned that he had always looked after his children and discussed the values he had imparted to them. Gacy admitted he wasn't as strict as his father, rejecting physical punishment. He believed in showing children love without spoiling them.
I've always looked after my children, even now. A lot of things that my dad did, I refuse to do, because I don't believe in hitting children. I don't believe in spoiling a child either.
The conversation then shifted to the accusations of murdering 33 children. Gacy was questioned about his contradictory statement regarding hitting children. He argued that people were basing their judgments on false information about him.
First of all, you're basing this garbage on what you've heard of me.
Gacy then shared that he had worked as a clown named Pogo, even mentioning his association with an ice cream company, which had 33 flavors. He explained that clowning was a way for him to relax and tap into his inner child.
To me, clowning it was a way of relaxation for me. You regressed into childhood, you were able to relax, and you could be goofy if you wanted to, and still you had the facade of your face being covered.
The clown suit served as a disguise, concealing his true identity and the heinous crimes he committed. Even on death row, Gacy continued to paint portraits of himself as a clown, finding irony in the situation. The interviewer commented on Gacy's meticulousness, extending to his victims, referring to the careful arrangement of their bodies. Gacy claimed that he and his lawyers had compiled extensive background information on each victim, creating profile sheets to understand their backgrounds and interests.
When I tell you I've got background information on it, we took each one of them by, we took each one of the victims, and this is by their names or by their indictment numbers. And what we did with each one of them, we did profile sheets on them. We wanted to know what this kid was into.
The interview concluded with Gacy expressing anger towards the victims' families, particularly one mother who frequently appeared on television demanding his execution. He made controversial remarks about her Marine son, suggesting he ran away for a reason.
That one mother that gets on television all the time who thinks I should be given 33 injections, I think she ought to take 33 Valiums and go lay down. She goes on Geraldo show and all these other shows talking about, I think it's Maori, I think is the name. Her Marine son. Her Marine son, if her Marine son was so great, what the hell did he run away from home 12 times?
Psychiatrists who analyzed Gacy's behavior described him as obsessive and meticulous. These traits enabled him to commit crimes and evade capture for so long. Even on death row, he maintained a detailed log of his daily life and the activities of his victims. His double life as a respected member of the community and a sadistic killer baffled many. In the end, justice caught up with John Wayne Gacy. On May 10th, 1994, he was executed by lethal injection. His last words, "Kiss my ass." class were a final display of defiance and arrogance. Decades later, the investigation into Gacy's crimes continues. In October 2021, another victim was identified, Francis Wayne Alexander, who had likely been killed by Gacy between 1976 and 1977. This ongoing effort to identify his victims has been fueled by advancements in DNA testing technology. The true extent of Gacy's crimes may never be fully known. There are lingering questions and unresolved cases. Did he act alone, or were there others involved? Gacy hinted at the possibility of additional victims, but concrete evidence has yet to be uncovered. If you enjoyed this video, click on the card showing on your screen right now for more videos exposing heinous crimes.